What is happening? Welcome to another episode of the On the Corner podcast. My name is Nick Pollack, and today we have Nate Schwartz coming and joining me. Get out of here, Eric Samulski, because we got to do a mock draft in review. Nate, tell everybody who you are and what you're doing here.
Yeah, so I'm Nate Schwartz. I've been writing at Pitcher List for almost 4 years now.
Woo!
Time flies.
Really does.
Doing mostly going deep stuff, looking deep into kind of all analytics, from the player stuff to the kind of more retrospective league-wide stuff. I helped write the Process Plus article on the stat that Kyle Bland developed.
Won an FSWA for your writing there, Nate?
Yes. It was a FSWA award-winning article, which was really neat. And I've just kind of been, all about, looking deeper, telling the data-driven stories in baseball and fantasy baseball over the last several years.
And you're going to see more of him this year.
Oh, yeah.
I promise everyone here. So we wanted to make sure that Nate was a part of this draft. And if you don't remember, we did a mock draft in the middle of October. And it has been a busy time. So I haven't been able to seize this man until right now. To do this draft on a late Thursday night, right after Johan Oviedo got traded to the Red Sox, and I was able to do a Moneyball meme with it because he throws with a great extension and height-adjusted VAA, but he can't throw strikes. We'll see what happens there, but remember that this is a 12-teamer. We have 3 outfielders, not 5. No middle infielder, no corner infielder, 2 utility spots, and it's head-to-head focus in Yahoo leagues, okay? So this is a shallow league. We do this every year, just get a good understanding of the generalized ADP, especially for your 10, 12 teamers, where the NFBC ADP, that is the 15-team leagues, don't apply as much. So we love getting this good glimpse at it. And yes, there are going to be some picks here that are a little bit outdated. I'm so sorry for Eric Samulski with his 6th round, Carlos Rodon. Yes, we know that's not where he's going to go. And Amai, once he signs, is not going to be there. Blah, blah, blah. I'm done saying all this stuff. Check out the draft in the show notes. And Nate, you had pick number 3. Did you select this one and want this going into it?
Yes, I did.
And why?
A bunch of my drafts in 2025 where I was really selecting kind of at the turn a lot later, and I didn't get a chance to grab any of the elite talent. And I think when I was signing up for picks, I had the option of, I think, 2 through 4 and a bunch of the later ones. And I didn't really want to make the decision between Judge or Ohtani. But I wanted top talent. And it's like, I'll take 3 and let myself, think about, am I going to go Soto or Witt? And then eventually, led me to Soto.
There you go. And I mean, Juan Soto, pretty straightforward, guys. I'm not going to bore you with all the analysis of Soto stealing more bases than we expected. He should still be a very major part of that lineup with the Mets and so on. We can move past that. I will say, now that you've been at pick number 3, do you like that spot as it plays out for the rest of the draft, Nate?
I think so. I realized a little bit later in the draft that some of the pitching, the kind of low SP1, high SP2, where us pitcher list drafters love to sit. I noticed it did kind of get thin in this draft in terms of our options. And I know that I did miss a few guys where I'm like, I don't think I would have jumped on him the round before either, which was a little frustrating. But overall, I was pretty happy with what was available to me for most of the draft.
Nice. Well, let's keep going there. Speaking of SP1, 2, well, you got my SP2. That is actually, no, I think he's my SP1. Yeah, he is. Garrett Crochet. I got to remember what I did. I don't remember. It is Garrett Crochet. Why? For me, it's because it's a good win situation and strikeouts and just all of it, while there is possibly a negative for Tarek or Skeens, that Crochet just has all the good stuff. Is that how you feel with Crochet? I mean, you really can't go wrong with 1, 2, 3, but do you have Crochet ahead of the others?
I mean, he's on equal footing. I kind of agree with you that he does everything just well enough, and he doesn't have the kind of the volume questions that I think the others do. And you saw in the playoff starts, he was still sitting a tick up. Velocity was holding throughout the start after throwing whatever 210 something innings. Like,
Yeah.
you know, he's a workhorse, and really just he added the sinker and was throwing it more and more throughout the year. And it's like, this guy has developed and developed and can't do a thing wrong. And frankly, I was shocked that he even made it back to my second round slot. I was convinced he was going to go kind of close to Skeens and Scooble, earlier, either, earlier in the second or late first. And as I'm a pitcherless drafter, I like to wait on pitching, but I could not pass up, a tier 1A starting pitcher in the late second.
Right. It's really tough to determine, especially in the first draft, like how is it going to land? How am I going to feel in those 6, 7, 8 rounds with going a starter over a hitter? And sometimes you can get really fortunate with still getting that last really good hitter before the cliff of it. And that is when, you'd say, okay, cool, I'd go for Crochet. And that'd be great if I get that really good 6th, 7th round hitter to pair with. But then if it gets a little drier, then you might not feel okay with it. And we'll see how that one pans out. But I love your 3rd round pick. And I was kind of upset at myself that I didn't do it. I went Trey Turner in the 2nd, and you went Ketel Marte in the 3rd. I was really hoping you would come back around because second base is so shallow, Nate.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the options. I was thinking about taking a Devers or maybe a Machado or something to clear up third base, which we'll get to. But Marte's still sitting there. He's by far the best second baseman. I think the next second baseman was Bryce Terang, and he obviously provides a different skill set, but he's in a different stratosphere compared to the rest of second base. And I'll take my odds with his injury proneness because he clears the group when healthy. He still posts, and I think he even set a new max EV last year. So it's clear the aging isn't really there yet for him. So I'm all in and will gladly take the best at a position.
Yeah, it's one of those things where especially in a 12-teamer, I'm very much about getting best in slot as much as you can, or at least just getting something where you don't feel like you're tinkering with it for hitters. I mean, no surprise. I don't want to think about hitters in season. So Ketel Marte is certainly one of those where it's just, yeah, you're going to have him at second. And I know personally, like, I'm going to have to figure this out, and I don't want to in season. I could see Ketel Marte going earlier on, middle second. There's also Jazz Chisholm, I should say, who I believe still has second base eligibility. He might not. In Yahoo, I really should know that, hosting this podcast right now, who did go at the end of the 2nd round. So it's not necessarily the only second baseman possibly, but for many leagues, he will be the top one. And then it's really just nothing else. So I consider that. Matt Olson is your 4th round pick. And I love this one too. I think first base also isn't the fullest it's been in previous seasons. And Olson has been absurdly consistent.
Yeah, I mean, it really felt like the last kind of top tier first baseman. And I really think, especially with first base, you can't miss the cliff, because getting that hole in your production from first base where you're, hopefully looking at 200 or so runs and RBI, like a good homer total, like you can't miss out on that if you're trying to take a shot on someone. And he's been so consistent, had a really nice bounce back in 2025. I think a lot of people maybe thought that the aging or injuries were going to get to him the year before. And then the Atlanta lineup still looks really, really solid. I think they'll be a pretty good offense next year. And I think he'll slot right in and be a consistent contributor.
Yeah, remember that Austin Riley should be much better for the entirety of the season, right? Injury removed and just being better. Ronald Acuna was also not great at the beginning of the year as he was out. You have just a better lineup, as you're mentioning, so that should help out Olson. I like both of those 2 picks. I will say that Marte does get a seal of approval from me. Olson could be right around there. I mean, Vinny Pascantino, I think, is a good one also in the middle of the 5th, so I can't quite say that, but
I will say that I was eyeing Brian Wu here. I I was not ready to go pitcher heavy to start, and then he kept kind of falling. I think Chris Sanchez went before him. I'm like, if I can end up with, probably my favorite hitter in Soto, a best in class second baseman, and two of my top, I think, 5 starting pitchers through 4 rounds, I can't complain. But
Sure.
it allowed me to make the pivot where I wasn't in this, completely unexpected situation.
Right. And yeah, Brian Wu would have been he was drafted as the 7th overall starting pitcher. Logan Gilbert went right after him as 8th, and then it was your pick with Matt Olson. So coming back around, you didn't go to DeGrom or Sale or Reagan's, Hunter Green, etc. No, you went Wyatt Langford. Why'd you go Wyatt Langford in the 5th?
I really wanted another bat. I think I still had a little bit of cover taking Crochet as an SP1, where I'm like, I think I can keep waiting, keep pushing it down. I think I ended up pushing it down maybe a little bit too far. But I really love Langford's skill set. When I was looking at this, and what I had kind of written down when I made the selection was that he had the highest barrel rate of anyone not to hit 25 homers this year. He hit enough pulled fly balls. He has the scary kind of injury history with his oblique, but I really think there's a profile in there for him to go like 40-20 with a 250 batting average. And I don't think it's, his floor is going to crater out. It might be the 20-20 with a 220 average that we saw this year. And I'll take my shot at that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Wyatt Langford inside a Texas lineup where he's going to be batting second, third. I mean, he was batting second by the end of the year. Consistently, and it's one of those cases where we knew he was great, and we could easily continue to see an ascension from Wyatt Langford across his 3rd full season. Actually, exactly 134 games for his first 2 seasons. It's kind of interesting. 6th round, you needed a shortstop, and should we really be going for Jeremy Pena in the 6th round, Nate?
So I don't know. That's the fun about doing a mock in the middle of October. I was between him and Joe Ryan. And I think in perfect hindsight, knowing how the draft went down, I would have gone with Joe Ryan, just because I feel like that skill set is really, really, safe. And I really like him, depending on where he's pitching next year. But I really like his skill set, and I think he can provide that kind of low SP1, high SP2 that doesn't necessarily fulfill, the fastball velocity and the flashiness of it doesn't, I think, get a lot of people on draft boards. But I went with Jeremy Pena. I wanted a big-time average guy, especially with the volatility of Soto's average. Langford will be hit or miss. And PLV loves Jeremy Pena's contact ability. He has 2020 potential. He's hitting leadoff full-time in that Astros lineup, most likely. And I think he'll just be a really, really complete player that will, do enough for me to fulfill the shortstop position.
Yeah, so last year, Jeremy Pena had at 17 home runs, 20 stolen bases, 3 or 4 average across about 550 plate appearances. And one of the benefits is you are going to get someone right at the top of the Astros lineup was hitting first, at the very least by the end of the season, if not from a lot of the season. It was pretty much in April where he wasn't until April 27th. And they said, yeah, let's just try it in the leadoff spot, and then just never left. And I see Jeremy Pena as, I don't want to say a Toby of hitters, maybe like a Holly. Like, you're not going to drop Jeremy Pena in all likelihood. At the same time, he is someone that does benefit your 15 teamers more, especially your roto leagues, where you want to have more padding with both average and with stolen bases. Also, I'm not completely sold that the batting average is here to stay. It's better, and that's good, but it is a 345 BABIP, and I hate saying this. I feel like I'm better than just quoting BABIP, but his process plus is not that good. It hovered around 110 throughout the year. It's fueled by contact, which will promote average, absolutely. And he doesn't make the best decisions. They're below average. He had above average power by the end. Essentially, what it looks like, if you look at the rolling chart, that Jeremy Pena was going through an injury, I guess, for the first 3 months, played through it, took a month off, and then power returned. It was 90 power plus, and then it was 110, 115 in those final 2 months. So maybe there is something to that you can lean into. And it really comes down to, all right, who else are the options at shortstop? Jacob Wilson, Geraldo Perdomo. Are you feeling, or Neil Cruz, I should say, are you feeling that knowing where the other guys landed, Wilson in the 9th, Perdomo in the 10th, O'Neal Cruz in the 11th, that you'd still like to have Pena 6th or even 7th round?
Yeah, I think it might have been a little bit aggressive. As I mentioned before, I'd kind of wish I had pivoted to my second starting pitcher
Sure.
there. But I'm a fan of the tool set. And I think the biggest thing for me that I learned from my drafts this year was that I really whiffed on a handful of my, you know, like rounds 5 to 10 hitters. I kind of dreamed too much on skills and didn't take consistent production. Or, I think I sold out, a little bit too much into guys who were high power, low contact, and, mostly decision making that didn't pan out. And I would think I was really frustrated by the lack of output early in the year. And I think by taking a safe guy like this, it really gives me a strong floor to then take shots in the 10 to 15 range where there's more fringier options, but those guys are more easily moved on from if the situation necessitates.
What is it about us as humans getting older and just being content with what we have?
Yeah,
And no longer needing the thrill and the excitement of the big thing and just be like, no, it's probably better if I don't do that.
yeah. In year 6 of playing fantasy, I've reached old age, and I'm like, give me the Tobies, give me the Tobies of
I'm
hitters.
the one shouting that Toby's are upside too. Oh gosh. We're gonna go to the 7th round now, but before we do, we're gonna take a quick break. 7th round, and you got Andres Munoz because you missed out on Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan went to the beginning of the round to Eno Saris. You might know him. And Munoz is right there. He is the third closer off the board. Edwin Diaz and Mason Miller going earlier. I'm not against the 7th, 8th, 9th round closer play. I want to hear from you why you pivoted instead of that Joe Ryan pick to go with, or to go instead of, say, Kyle Bradish or Shane Bieber, Jacob Mizorowski, pitchers who went after, instead to go with Munoz.
Yeah, so I was having seen Edwin Diaz go in the 5th and then Mason Miller in the 6th. I was really worried that there was going to be a run of closers coming up as we hit the 7th or 8th turn that I was going to miss out on. And having just lost my main option, and I wasn't huge on going for Bradish, or more importantly, I think Mizorowski. I was like, I'll take the shot on a closer. I'll get the guy that I like. And as it turned out, there was not a closer run, which was a little bit frustrating. I think I probably could have taken Munoz a round later. But, I'm happy to pay up a little bit because saves are really so fickle. And getting a top line option, I think, is really important. And I'll take the chance. I really like, I like the role, and, pitching in Seattle always helps.
It is also interesting drafting in October for closers. It's one of the things I think is the worst part about doing these mocks, because it does set ADP too. And that's another really annoying part of this. So you will see closers who are assured in September and October favored more so than the newer guy who is also assured, or the free agent signing, or someone relieved just because they weren't necessarily locked into that role before. They're going to be lower in ADP, but it becomes pretty clear quickly that they are the closer, and those guys become a huge value oftentimes in drafts when you come around to March or February even. And Duran went after, and then really the closing run that you were trying to predict happened around the 9th. It was Hader Aroldis and Kate at the second half of it.
And I
There really weren't too many to choose from.
Yeah,
So
and I think
Munoz,
I like Munoz over that
yeah,
kind of
Munoz is great.
trio.
Yeah.
I know Rick Graham's reliever rankings were not as kind to Munoz. I think he had him sixth or seventh.
So you
But
were the piece of mail that he got.
yeah,
Okay. Just want to make sure.
yeah, I was the one who was like, no, I can't keep Munoz this high if Nate's taking him as the third closer off the board.
Yes.
But he lost some velo in the second half of the year, but also was fine. So as long as he's really in the, the upper 90s and still has the slider, I'm just not worried. It's such a good combination that, and it looks like Seattle will still be in winning ball games. So I think it'll be fine to take him here.
Yeah, the losing velocity is always going to make me worry a little bit, especially when Munoz was playing some very important games for the Mariners. It wasn't like, okay, cool, I can take my foot off the gas pedal. And maybe that led to extra fatigue, which can worry. I will always tell people that when you see a closer who still has a role after having a bad season, go after him because reliever ratios are so finicky. They are so finicky. It's such a small sample. It's bonkers. So, yeah, I mean, the velocity is a little worrisome hearing that from you right now, but I'm not going to say anything more. Eury Perez in the 8th round. And I love me some Eury Perez. I imagine you do too.
Yeah, this was my first, it felt like, fun pick of the draft. I love Eury. I think the biggest thing for him is that he has the fastball, right? I think for a lot of guys, and we saw it, with Strider coming back from TJ, the fastball didn't have the oomph that it once did, and he lost a lot of the shine. Eury comes out and is just dominating with the fastball. And I mean, one of the things I was looking at is in our mistake rate versus non-competitive rate. So, how many pitches are you throwing that aren't mistakes and are competitive? His fastball is top 20 or top 10 among, all fastballs thrown at least 250 times. That is the elite of the elite. It gets whiffs. Hitters don't do much to it, and he throws it in the zone all the time. I'm obsessed, frankly. Conversely, the slider was bottom 10 among sliders in mistake minus non-competitive rate. There are a lot of, you watch any of his starts or you look at the heat maps, and there's a lot of sliders that just, there's a big glob down, like way down and away, where it doesn't look like he either had the grip or the release wasn't good. And it wasn't, poor location trying to attack a hitter, but it was just a full-on non-competitive pitch. And so while I'm a little worried there, he threw enough last year that I'm pretty confident that he'll have the time to take the step forward, and he has such a strong floor with the fastball to be able to overcome it.
Yeah, I mean, I really hope that Eury does have just those breakers. It's so important. I love the fact that he still tried to make the changeup work against lefties, and the strike rate did not get better. I
didn't realize it was a 4% zone rate.
He's just trying so hard, and I can't tell you how many times I watched games of his, especially earlier on in the season for him, where lefties would just foul off everything with the fastball, nothing else. So he's just trying to find some other look, and please just execute one changeup. It's just all these things. I just need to get this there, and he couldn't do it. And it's just, all right, another fastball. Let's hope he doesn't foul this one back. That's the element with Eury that has me a little worried, is where he also locates everything. It's not just that changeup or the breakers. It's the four-seamer not being elevated enough or along the edges. It's a lot of them just like, here you go. And it's something that we talk about all the time. Okay, command comes back later with Tommy John, et cetera, et cetera. Very much so. He has not really had that full season that we want from him. So here it is. And my lesson that I keep telling myself and not listening to from this year is draft pitchers who have done it once before, who have just done it once, and all you're asking for them to do is do that thing again. Instead of saying this is the year they're going to do the thing. And that innately has me at like 25 for Eury instead of top 20. And I so badly want to raise him higher. But that just keeps eating at me of just he hasn't done it yet. And yet I can see why he didn't totally do it yet last year. So I hope he does.
It's definitely, it's definitely a bit of a shot in the dark. But what I really like and what I think is underrated is that even through the struggles of this year, he had a 1.05 whip.
Yeah.
And I think that goes so unnoticed a lot of the time, where you just see the ERA and, strikeouts, innings, and all of that in, surface level fantasy stats. And, even if he, say takes a half step forward and ends at a 3.7 ERA, but still has that solid whip, that's going to do so much help for you in ways you probably won't ever realize.
So there you go. And I also want to mention Michael King, Shane Bieber, Framber Valdez, Logan Webb, Shota Managa, Tyler Glasnow. They were all drafted earlier than Eury Perez. I am not disagreeing with Nate's pick in the 8th after all of those guys went. It's about me drafting him appropriately. And if he was there in the 9th, I would have taken him. But he wasn't because Nate Schwartz took him.
Yeah, I was between Snell and Perez.
Oh yeah, no, you take Eury because Snell is. If you want to talk about anxiety,
yeah.
Oh boy, let me show you the door. Matt Shaw is your 9th round pick, and I gotta ask some questions, Nate. What team are you a fan of?
The St. Louis Cardinals.
Yes, and what would you know about Matt Shaw?
He plays for the Chicago Cubs.
And he is a destroyer of the Cardinals. It is the thing. Oh, no, I'm thinking of Michael Bush. Okay, never mind. Not Matt Shaw. I'm thinking of Michael Bush. Am I thinking of Michael Bush?
Yes, you're thinking about Michael Bush.
I'm thinking of Michael Bush.
Michael Bush Stadium.
That is how little I know. He has a CH in the name, starts with an M,
Close enough.
Yeah, so I just want to put on the table, you have not drafted any Cardinals at this moment.
This will be funny when we get to my later 3 picks in this draft, but I've had a pretty harsh rule of not drafting Cardinals when I play fantasy baseball, because if I have a player on my favorite team and they don't play well, who loses? Me, twice. Right. So I, generally, if Matt Shaw hits 3 homers against the Cardinals, in some small way, I have a victory. But Matt Shaw, I was looking around at how just bleak third base is. I think second base has a lot quicker of a drop off at the top. And third base has some options. I know Austin Riley went in the 7th. I think Bregman, Michael Garcia are interesting kind of early middle round options. But I was kind of scrambling here of I need something. And I really liked the changes that Matt Shaw made in the second half. I think he had like a 130 WRC plus and was on like a 25-15-ish pace in the second half. And, for a rookie coming up who broke camp with the team, there was, a lot of adjustment, a lot of questions and expectations for him. And it seems like he kind of quietly figured it out. And I'm happy to take the chance that, even if he's a, 110 WRC plus and goes 2015, I think I'm happy with what that would be for third base, given what was available.
Man, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. Matt Shaw's process plus, Nate.
They don't love him. It doesn't love him.
It's an atrocity.
Yeah.
He had, okay, these are rolling charts, right? If you guys don't know this is, I think it's really funny. We have 20 million things, different ways to market PL Pro to you. Okay, of all the stuff that we offer, from the projections to my streaming rankings early to the Discord, which is the greatest thing ever, ad free, blah, blah, blah. If I had to do one thing that you get one perk, it's access to our rolling charts with Process Plus. And this is showing me, I think it's 1 or maybe like 3 days of a 15-day window that Matt Shaw had a Process Plus above 100 for the entire season.
Yeah, it does not love him. I've got choice words for Kyle Bland.
Well, no. Choice words for Matt Shaw and his lack of power. Okay.
But he makes a lot of in zone contact, not truly in the process plus that I think goes missed, and then just pulls enough in the air to make it all work. And I do think that he'll come into 2026 with a fresh slate, and I think a step forward would be nice, but if he was able to kind of repeat the coming above ground that we saw in the second half, I would be a fan of that.
Yeah, I hope so. And I mean, I think you really do hammer the point of like third base is bad now. Isaac Perez, Matt Chapman. They go later in the 9th round. Royce Lewis is in the 13th. Love Marte in the 16th. I'm sure I'm missing one somewhere else has dual eligibility. Yeah, it gets really rough. So
Shaw was the 9th third baseman off the board. So really the bottom.
And what's really, really tough about this is you look at the pitchers who are still available, right? Like Drew Rasmussen was taken, and Cam Schiller, Chase Burns, and Dylan Cease, and Nolan McLean, Ryan Pepio. Like there are a number of starting pitchers who are going to help you, right?
Yeah.
Can you say with all certainty that you are not going to be dropping Matt Shaw by June 1st?
Absolutely not.
Right.
But I felt like I had to scramble.
I'm not saying this is a bad pick.
Yeah.
What I am saying is trying to, I guess my goal of a draft is to draft guys I know I'm holding on to as much as I can, and not to be in a position of having to take a match. I'll watch Matt Shaw's gonna have an amazing season though. Like what do I know about hitters?
Well, as a Cardinal fan, I hope not.
Yeah. But Matt Shaw is your 9th round pick. Any other words you want to share on him?
Nope. I would like to talk about my 10th round
in the league because Kershaw's gone now, right? Nolan McLean the 10th, and Nolan McLean, I gotta say, is one of those guys who is getting propped up a lot early on. And I'm curious what your take is. I think that this is relatively where the dust is going to settle, because this is later than I believe the NBC ADP has for Nolan McLean. It has him after Burns and Schlittler, for example, who I think are not actually perceived as better than McLean. Where are you on McLean after just 8 starts in the bigs?
I'm really, really high on him. Of that, I think referred to it as the majestic 7, the hype 7, or whatever it was.
7, yeah.
Oh, I love that. When we did this draft, I was like, I'm happy to get McLean here, and then was shocked to find out a couple of weeks later that he was the first second-year pitcher off the board by a decently healthy margin.
Save Jakob Mizorowski, or is that actually including?
I think McLean was above Mizorowski.
Oh man.
Because you had the kind of late season and playoff struggles for Mizorowski.
Okay.
Or I don't remember if he struggled in the playoffs, but
right.
I know there was some hesitancy. Sure. But I really feel that McLean is, really polished, and the fact that he has the ability to get right-handed hitters out seemingly at ease gives them the platform to tinker with and find an approach for lefties. It's one of those things where, we saw it with Brian Wu early in his career where he struggled to get lefties out, and eventually, it clicked. And I know they're not the same archetype necessarily, but I think there's just a lot of opportunity. And while he is the sinker sweeper guy, who, generally you'd perceive those guys as more inning eaters, good ratios, not great strikeouts, we've seen the strikeout games from him, where I think he just has an opportunity really to blossom, and the innings look to be in a really strong position. So I think he's in a really good position, even if he doesn't have lefties perfectly figured out, this year.
So if you want to know more about Nolan McLean and my take on him, you got to go listen to the On the Corner podcast with Eric Samulski, where we talk about finding a top 25 starting pitcher. But I will tell you, I am not going to be drafting Nolan McLean next year. And I'm not as confident as Nate, but Nate's really smart. So it's good to have 2 opinions here, guys. Uh, the main pushback I have is just that I don't think his fastballs are that good. I think they overperformed in the small sample. Sweeper didn't miss enough bats. And yeah, that is a problem against lefties. You're right that Brian Wu came through with it, but it is always easier to come through when your fastball is your best asset. The biggest weakness we see with failure against lefties is fastballs not being good enough. That means you have to squeeze more and more out with secondaries. And that's a harder thing to do than the reverse. That
Yeah,
is the crux of it.
yeah, I think for him that I'm really interested to see is how he adjusts the sweeper usage versus lefties.
Mm.
Because he threw it like 21% of the time to lefties, which feels very counterintuitive. And I think he's got real potential in the cutter to lefties.
No, you're speaking my language there, Nate. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Aren't you the anti-cutter guy? I'm sorry. He's not. Guys. He is not. That's an
I love
inside joke.
cutters. I love
All
cutters.
right. He doesn't.
But it's a pitch he can throw in the zone to lefties. He gets strikes with it. It's pretty league average in terms of ideal contact rate. But I think it's kind of the thing that if he throws it more and stops throwing a sweeper 20% of the times to opposite-handed hitters, I think that could be a big step towards him figuring it out.
All right. Well, we're going to move on here to the 11th round. And we will do that after this break. So it's Will Smith, World Series hero, for the Dodgers as your catcher in the 11th round. I feel like this is fantastic value for your catcher.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the draft, one of my big takeaways was that this is the year of the catcher. There were so many options still on the board, and all throughout the draft that were like, there are just so many good catchers, and that felt like a perfect opportunity to go with old reliable. Too many guys were, oh, they want to chase the next big thing and whatever. Will Smith posted his best season by WRC plus by like 20% this year. Like he hit 296 and was just, incredible when he was playing. And I don't see why I wouldn't go chase this. It's old reliable, you know what you're getting, and he's going to be, I think, phenomenal to get him in the 11th. And I think some of the other catching options that might have gone earlier, might not work out that well.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are going to be a lot of different opinions on catcher. Go for Cal Raleigh early. Go for this middle crew: William Contreras, Shaling Lears, Hunter Goodman, Ben Rice, Alexi Ramirez, Ivan Herrera, Will Smith. Or you wait and you get Salvador Perez in the 19th, Yanir Diaz, Alejandro Kirk, Drake Baldwin, Samuel Basallo. Honestly, all of them make sense to me. Take your pick. And I just couldn't help Ben Rice. I just think he's incredible.
I loved the Ben Rice pick.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yes.
I didn't know how I felt. So
it was one of my favorite.
Surprise!
In that middle grouping. But yeah, I just, he's old reliable. This was almost getting him at a discount because I know
Will
he was
Smith. Yes.
Yeah, I know Smith was pushed up a bit last year, and I'll gladly take him at the slight discount.
Sure. Now, here's a funny thing. Nate doesn't know this, guys. I saw Nate's draft and I decided I was going to make some phone calls. And I decided to call the Red Sox and said, look, my guy Nate has too many Cardinals on his team. Can you please go and trade for one of them? So fine, okay. They traded for Sonny Gray. So look, Nate, you didn't even draft a Cardinal. Sonny Gray in the 12th round. He's a Red Sox.
My draft is aging beautifully. I'm getting the Cardinals actually off of my roster.
So Sonny Gray is a very interesting one in my book. I think we can talk about him in a couple ways. I think it hurts him personally going to Boston, even though the win total should get better. I think the environment in Busch and also the team around him is just a better context for success than it is in Boston. I think he'll get the hook a little bit earlier there. I don't know how I feel about the defense, and yeah, it's just I don't feel as good about it. I'm curious what your thoughts are from Sonny Gray going from St. Louis to Boston.
Yeah, one thing I noticed was a lot of the hard contact he gave up, especially against righties, was getting out and really falling in Busch Stadium in right center field. And I think it's interesting that Fenway and the full center and right field defense they have with Willy Abreu and either Roman Anthony or whoever is patrolling center, I think will be, still really beneficial, and more things might stay in the park for him. But what I think is most interesting about him going to Boston is that I think they're going to get him to move on from his backdoor sinker obsession. He threw it too much.
That's interesting because he had, what was it in 2024? It was like a 40% put away rate.
Yep.
With that backdoor sinker, and that fell. Not absurdly. I think went down to like 27, if I remember correctly. But it's still. Why do you want them to go away from the backdoor sinker for Sonny Gray?
It's just he was throwing so much in the zone, and that is something that is so susceptible to balls in play in two strike counts. He's got all of these breaking pitches. Throw the breaking pitches, get the whiff. You don't need to freeze the guy. And it's we saw, as you mentioned, in 2024, it was a 40% put away rate. And that is such a high bar for it to succeed. So when it drops to 31% in 25, which is still 93rd percentile, he really struggles. And I think kind of going off that, he just threw the pitch in the zone a bunch more. And I think that negatively, affected the output because, he works best when he's confusing hitters. And when you rely on something too much without, great stuff, you can get harmed, pretty significantly, even when the stats are pretty good.
Yeah. So the ball in play percentage was 22% last year for the sinker against right-handers. And in the year before, it was 17%. So it did get put into play more often. Still 31% put away rate is 93rd percentile on sinkers, which is pretty fantastic. Maybe that could be. I mean, you're right. It did get worse against right-handers, and that is an issue that can be fixed by just not doing it as much.
Yeah.
But I wonder if he is still going to lean on it. I mean, his sweeper was used 2/3 of the time in 2-strike counts against right-handers. Like he did save that one for them, and that was 23% usage overall against right-handers. So that was really the first option, I think, against righties for the punch out. But yeah, I can see where you come from with that. And Sonny Gray is going to be a guy that is going to go through stretches of feeling it or not. And he certainly had more bouts of failure this past year with a 4.28 ERA and a 123 whip. As the home runs did go a little bit higher, but really it was the hit rate going to 9.2 instead of the routine 7 and change that he's had prior, which obviously should get better. That's really everything that you look at. That's the problem. Strikeout rate did come down as we expected, but didn't go down as much as I thought it would. And I would put that with, against lefties, the coolest asset I would say from 2024 was a 31% put away rate and 27% on his sweeper. So sweeper's 27, curveball was 30 against lefties. I apologize. I'm doing the Bernie Sanders now, where I wave my hand in front of my face as I explained. And those actually got better in 2025 against lefties. 31% sweeper put away rate, 37% on curveballs. And I really want to put this into perspective. Put away rate is like 22-23% is what we expect for secondary pitches often. If it gets up to 25 to 30, whoa, oh my gosh. To see 37% with his curveball, 31% on the sweeper to lefties, that's huge. And he threw that curveball overall 25% of the time to lefties. So it's he's got a good feel for that, and that's why you see the strikeout rate still up. It's a rare feat, really. So it's more believable now after that 27%, of course, that you could keep that up. And the hit rate should come down. So maybe there is something here.
Yeah, it's also kind of, when I was looking at who was available, it really feels like just a strong strikeout minus walk rate play of I'm going to trust that. And he's even now, I didn't know at the time, but he's going to a really smart pitching organization. He's a tinkerer. that, I really think he's going to, ideally make the changes necessary to maintain that, and then see, even if the ERA isn't, exceptional like it's been in the years past, if he could get down to 3.7, 3.8, I think I'll be happy with this pick.
So that was Sonny Gray there in the 12th round. We got to speed up a little bit. This is all my fault. Mike Trout 13th. You're like, hey, what the heck? When he's healthy, he's still Mike Trout.
Exactly. Process Plus still loves him. It's a 123 Process Plus, despite a 79 contact. So like maybe there's a cliff.
He's on to 79?
Yeah. There's a 30 something percent strikeout rate. But I know when he's healthy, he's going to be in my lineup and producing in some ways. I could see him doing the Stanton 2025 season in minimal games, and I'll be happy.
Is he like the quietest goat ever?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My nephew, I think when he was like 4 years old, came to Cape Cod, and I remember saying, "Hey, Liam, we're not going to go get ice cream unless you understand this truth. Who is the best baseball player?" And I have him on camera saying Mike Trout, right? And he's 9 now, so this was like he's about to turn 9. So I guess it was like 2019 or so, that summer or something like that. And it's so quick; it just goes away.
Yeah,
it was for so long. It's Mike Trout. We know this. Oh man. But yeah, I mean, 13th round, 12-teamer. I say this constantly. Get guys who are really good, and their only problem is health. Because great, you have a best in slot in a 12-teamer for whenever they're healthy. That is way more valuable than the guy who goes through the entire year, because the replacement value is much higher. So big fan of that one. Seal of approval, 13th round, Mike Trout. I don't care what anyone says. Ryan Helsley, 14th round, also seal of approval. This is not a Cardinal.
I drafted this knowing he was not going to be a Cardinal.
I know. Well, he was already traded to the Mets, so
yes.
and they weren't going to sign him. It's funny how you cheated yourself almost.
Yes, I've drafted 2 Cardinal non-Cardinals.
It's like you're playing chess against yourself. You're like, he's going to go here. I'll be able to go around,
Yeah, but the thing about Helsley that I guess is kind of, I don't want to say insider information of being a Cardinals fan, but what I experienced in prior years was that he already had undergone some tipping issues that he was able to solve. And he also really struggled in trying to do 4-out saves with the Cardinals, or before he was the closer, in leverage non-save situations. So I knew he was going to get an opportunity to close somewhere. And, I absolutely am confident that he's going to be able to figure out the issues that were plaguing him. And I think he's going to be lights out in Baltimore.
Ooh, all right. I mean, I think it's a great pick, getting a great closer in the 14th. Like, this always happens. This always happens. That's such a good one. I know he's not going to start. He shouldn't have started. The whole thing about him starting, I don't stop that. Look at this. We got Jakob Marsee. I will say that every single time to my grave, and I don't care if y'all are sick of it. I will do the Jason Marquis joke forever. And so you got Jakob Marsee in the 15th round. How do you feel about him? He's a Process Plus darling.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of my thinking with this pick. There was really a bunch of relievers and kind of fringe starters going around here, and I didn't really like any of the options kind of bat wise, and I thought it was really fun pick. I mean, Process Plus loves him. He doesn't really chase. He makes a lot of contact and has shown a sneaky amount of pop, and that's absolutely an archetype I'm chasing. And I think, this late, I don't think the average at 292 is going to stick. But if he hits 275, I think I'm absolutely happy with, how he produces.
And guess what? He's already hitting first and second, third in the Miami lineup. And I know it's not as good of a lineup, but that could be 80 runs, 80 RBI if he's just always there. Yeah. So that works. That is very good for your 15th round. Do I want to give that a seal of approval? No. Okay. Payton Tolle in the 16th round. This is an interesting one because when you look at the Red Sox rotation, even before the Sonny Gray deal, it didn't quite add up that Payton Tolle would be in the rotation. And Connolly early went in the next round. As someone I personally believe that Red Sox are giving an inside track to over Tolle for a potential spot. But you went Tolle instead, and I wanted you to outline your thoughts behind this pick.
Yeah, I mean, similar to with Eury Perez, I really love the fastball.
Yeah, it's so good.
Like it just rocks, and I think maybe it's a little aggressive. As I agree, kind of looking back on it, I don't know if he has the inside track on the rotation, but he will get starts, and I think over a full season he does have the skill set to outperform Connolly early. And I really think, if he's given that opportunity again, I could see him taking it and not looking back. And you have I think a full off-season spring training and stuff of, working with and being around Garrett Crochet, who's also a somewhat similar power lefty.
It is a huge benefit because you saw Garrett Crochet with just really a fastball.
Yeah.
And then turning himself into using the cutter and finding the sweeper and then adding the sinker. And we hope that's what Payton Tolle will do over time. So I'm with you. The best pitch between Early and Tolle belongs to Tolle, but there isn't enough there while Connolly Early has more of an arsenal, I think, at the moment. And Connolly Early is my favorite late round starter target as of now. It is kind of interesting how I really just like that guy. But Payton Tolle, it's such a good heater. If he does get a cutter really working, that can be very dangerous there. If you did this again, would you be taking Payton Tolle in the 16th?
I don't think so.
Who would you be taking instead?
I think I was. My queue was decimated. Before I was looking at Ryan Nelson, Shane McClanahan, and Andrew Abbott. And I think Abbott had gone maybe 2 rounds.
Abbott went in the 15th and Nelson in the 16th, and McClanahan taken by some dunce in the in that round. And all 3 of them were after your previous pick.
Yeah, I think looking back on it, I would have gone with Early there, but I just wanted something a little bit exciting.
That makes sense. I would have gone with Nathan Eovaldi, but now that I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, Eovaldi.
Yeah.
But no, it's something to think about. And in the second that Payton Tolle starts again, we're all going to be picking him up in our 12 teamers. Willy Adames in the 17th. So you have Jeremy Pena, but Willy Adames, what, he hit 31 home runs or something?
Yeah.
Wild, right?
Like,
it was the second half that was glorious, or at least it came out of nowhere, I think, all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, he was really struggling, hitting under 200 early in the year.
Oof. He didn't get too much higher by the end.
But he is someone who I think it took a little bit for him to adapt to his new ballpark, especially one that hates right-handed hitters as much as San Francisco does, and he still hit 30 home runs. And I think one thing that I noticed as I was doing my build outside of the Mike Trout pick, I'd taken a lot of guys who, showed some stolen base, some power, Jeremy Pena, Matt Shaw, Wyatt Langford, guys who, there was a little bit of a half and half. It wasn't all power, all speed. And I wanted to just add kind of a fringe later bat who is going to post a bunch of homers, and I don't really have to worry about it.
Sure. It makes all the sense too. And Adames is one of those guys that, like, 12 teamers, who knows when he's going to have his hot streak and his cold streak. So it could be the hot streak right away. And that would be awesome, and then you feel great, so it's one of those where I'd rather take this kind of guy than your 15-15, because the 15-15 it's less than a stolen base and a home run a week.
Yeah.
And it's a grind. Matt the Liberatore, 18th round. Look at this.
First real Cardinal. No, I could not. I think the biggest thing with Liberatore was that he really fell off a cliff with fatigue. This was his first real year starting. He had been really back and forth. The Cardinals did not want to give him a starting role until this year, almost kind of out of necessity. And he was great, or, good enough for the first 2.5 months, and it completely cratered. And he was still able to get to 150 innings this year. And I think with a full off season of knowing, what that took, I think he'll come back and be able to, one, make it through the season. But for a pitcher in the 18th round, I don't think that's, necessarily the most important part. I think I saw enough from the cutter and the slider that I think it can all work to be a good ratios play. And having taken Tolle, who, 2 rounds prior, who had a lot of questions on innings and role, I kind of wanted to make sure I got a guy who was exciting to some extent, but more importantly, had an innings, base.
But the thing is, he's not one to swatch. He doesn't.
No, he is not a swatch.
Tight changeup.
No, it is quite an awful changeup.
And that bothers me. I'm sorry. If you're a crafty lefty, right? Like Liberatore is, because he's not an overpowering one.
No.
To not have a tight changeup is just antithetical almost.
He reminds
what he's
me
trying to do. But as you said, you're right. Hey, cool. This cutter getting inside to righties has got to be that slider away to lefties has to be there. A good enough command with the fastball. And we saw it a lot this year. It is a good situation in St. Louis. However, I would argue that there is a free agent pitcher who's going to sign with the Cardinals that was very much available in this draft, who is going to be so much better. It's what you want Matthew Liberatore to be. That is Merrill Kelly. He is going to sign with the Cardinals. It's a done deal. Okay. You heard it here first. I have no sources, guys, but it's one of those matches made in heaven. Merrill Kelly, your boring ideal of Miles Michaelis. Obviously, he's going to St. Louis when they'll sign him on like a 3-year deal and he'll be happy or so. 3-4 years, $60 million, call it a day. And that's it.
Yeah.
How would you feel about that, Nate?
I'd be happy. I don't think people are ready for how many left-handed pitchers are about to show up in St. Louis.
Oh, man, you're right. Yeah, you have Quinn Matthews as well.
Quinn Matthews, Cooper Jerpy, Liam Doyle. They're coming.
Oh, man, at least we got Tink.
As a left-handed pitcher growing up and a left-handed enthusiast.
And you are by the way, we're in that first pitch Arizona. I don't know what you're doing. But you might have seen Nate Schwartz throw in the pitch box, or whatever you want to call it, the pitching cage, with throwing at the numbers. And Nate's delivery, I'm a little jealous of. He kind of has it reminds me of Robert Gasser.
Yep.
It's kind of flat. It's shorter to the ribs than some, and he whips it.
Yeah.
It was the funnest thing. And I'm very jealous that you're a lefty.
But completely conversely to that with Liberatore, he's the Kershaw archetype. Not saying he's in any way performance related, but nowhere close. They just are left-handed. But pretty over the top lefty, obvious, like who's focused on the fastball, the curveball, and then the breaking pitches. He doesn't have the changeup, and Liberatore will likely never have the changeup. And as we see with Kershaw, it is such a high bar of execution to figure it out. And I think that's what we've seen with Liberatore as a highly regarded prospect. But that's the archetype I see, as, almost a what could be in terms of at least any bit of ceiling.
So Drew Pomeranz, Drew Smiley, Matthew Liberatore.
Exactly.
Archetype. Was just then there's also Kershaw, whatever. But like
a man can dream.
Keeping it more. Gotcha. We're going to talk about your last 5 picks very quickly here. Actually, you're probably in roughly 10 minutes or so. But before we do, got to take one more break. All right, Nate. How do you feel about your 19th round pick in this draft?
It got interesting.
It got interesting because he was no longer an Oriole. He's an Angel. That is Grayson Rodriguez. And did you know the Angels had over a -50 outs above average last year as a team defense? And that doesn't really matter. It's just, are you going to be healthy? Grayson Rodriguez, you thought 19th round, what the heck? Take a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll know pretty quickly with him, because the reports were as he was, coming back, not coming back from injury, that he was throwing a little bit, and we've seen that he's able to miss bats, and I think the ERA, especially with that horrid defense, will be a question. But it's the Angels; they're going to let him throw, and if he shows any semblance of being like even the 2023 version of Grayson Rodriguez, I think it's perfectly worth the flyer to take here this late.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, this is the kind of thing, again, I encourage all the time later on. It's hard to find something that you're going to necessarily hold at this point. Might as well just go for an injured thing that you'd quickly get rid of. So seal of approval there for Grayson Rodriguez. I know that sounds shocking, but like, yes, this is exactly the kind of pick you should be making. Ryan Weathers in the 20th. That's a fun one. Talk to me about that one.
I think it was important that we saw him come back at the end of the year, and this is another. We'll know pretty early. Is the fastball velocity there? When it shows up, it works really well for him. I don't know if the changeup is really good enough to be a secondary throughout the full season, but we've seen glimpses of an exciting arsenal from Weathers, and he's probably I think when I was looking earlier, there's a good chance that I'll go in that first weekend for the Marlins, and I'll take my chance with that.
Yeah, he is a swatch. His changeup got much better over the years. 21% swing strike rate in both 24 and 25 for Ryan Weathers. And his velocity did go up to 97 on average, and 96 last year, 95 before that. Did you know that Ryan Weathers has third percentile extension? 5.9. Not good. Not what you want to see, which does mean that 97 maybe comes in more at 95, but still it's from the left side. You have a good changeup off of that, a sweeper. He is very interesting. The one reason why I personally haven't circled and said, yes, I am going to do this, is because we constantly just don't see Ryan Weathers stay on the field long enough to do it or do the thing long enough. And I hate to make a Weathers joke, but yeah, it's, it is like the weather. We don't know what we're going to get every day necessarily, at least throughout a full season. So I do have some hesitancy of leaning into it. However, at this point in your 12-teamer, Ryan Weathers absolutely would have been drafted by yours truly if he were around in the 22nd, 23rd. Because what the heck? Let's just see what we got. And he's not going to be going as the SP5 for the Marlins. If he is healthy and he's just going out of camp, he's going to be going that opening weekend. And I am so in on that. Draft everyone in the first 3 slots of rotations. That is, do not go after SP5s because you'll be waiting longer and longer and longer. They're also not sure things. The organizations are more tepid on them. They won't go longer into games, etc. It's just a good general rule that obviously there are always exceptions. That's one of my 5 mantras. There are always exceptions. But Ryan Weathers is not one of those. He is going to be early in that rotation. You're going to know opening weekend to quickly be able to make that choice. I like this pick too. This is a fun one. I would take him over Landon Roop. I would take him over not Seth Lugo. Parker Messick probably. Chad Patrick, Reese Olson, Bryden Bayo. Maybe not Reese Olson. I don't know. It's a very interesting crew at the bottom. Spencer Artigetti here too. Lugo and Kelly. It's all interesting stuff. But yeah, I like this one with Ryan Weathers. He should be drafted around them. Heliot Ramos.
Yeah.
This guy.
I mean, kind of bounce back season you're looking at. His barrel rate dropped pretty precipitously year over year. But, Process Plus still liked him a decent amount. And he's still, maybe better for roto leagues of going 250 and 20 homers in, more or less a very boring way. But, I'll take the shot that he, maybe bounces back to that 2023 level, or rather 2024 level, and has a good start to the season. The one interesting thing here was he set a new max EV by like 3 miles an hour last year.
Ooh.
Which, we didn't see it in the results at all, but that felt pretty notable. And for a 21st round player that, more often than not is immediately swapped out within that first week, I'll take a shot.
Yeah, I understand that completely. We don't know how the lineup will shape up for the Giants, but he was batting first and second and third for most of the season, and by the end it was at the top of the lineup. So that's really nice for Heliot Ramos. Getting that consistent production that's pretty dang cool. Getting that in the 21st round of just having that guy that you can swap in. I totally understand it. Chad Patrick in the 22nd round. First of all, 2 first names, so no. But is he going to probably start? Are they going to let him do it? It is a case where it feels like the Brewers, and they've done this with the guys in the past, are content to say just 5 innings from certain guys. Do you think that Chad Patrick is one of them, or do you think that they are going to let him go a full 6?
I think it really hinges on where Freddie Peralta is. Because I think if he moves and Patrick ends up as the SP 3 or 4, and that's with questions to Brandon Woodruff health-wise, I think they're going to need innings from him. And I really like, obviously, the Brewers pitching development. And I just love the Triforce that he has. He doesn't have anything else, but it's a really fun cutter, and the sinker and 4-seam do enough in the periphery to make it work.
Oh man, you might be too young for this, Nate, but I don't know if you remember Alex Fast talking about the Imperial Shuttle.
No.
That was the same concept. I call it the diamond of 4 of them if you have a changeup in there or you have a curveball in there, actually. But yeah, having 4 different directions in that way. Or the 3 would be the Imperial Shuttle, and I like that you call it the Triforce too. That's where my mind goes.
Yeah.
So that's shout out Alex Fast there. But yes, Freddie Peralta, Brandon Woodruff, Jacob Mizorowski, Quinn Priester, Chad Patrick is the current expected 1 through 5 for the Brewers. But if Peralta does get dealt, or the Brewers could easily just add a free agent and think, cool, we have 2 options left with Chad Patrick. He was in this role last year. He did great. We feel comfortable adding someone else and then bringing up Patrick when we need some help. That could be what happens too.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely up in the air. As kind of, he was one of the last guys on the board that I was like, this is a fun option that I'm pretty intrigued by. And when I was looking into it, I was like, it wouldn't surprise me if a Brewers pitcher out of nowhere showed up with a whiff pitch and he just became like, something more. It would be a very Brewers thing to do. And I liked enough of it already that I'll take the shot.
What is interesting is that none of Chad Patrick's pitches are above a 5 PLV, including the cutter. And when you see a starting pitcher feature a cutter as their primary offering, 41% from Chad Patrick, it usually returns something like a ridiculous PLV. Mitch Spence, you have Drew Rasmussen in that conversation, and 4.94 for Chad Patrick's, but 15% swing strike rate, 68% strike rate on it. It was still a very good pitch for him. So yeah, it is fun that you have this guy that is able to do so well with a cutter, and also a 4-seamer that gets a 13% swing strike rate. He's able to mask the 2 effectively upstairs. But yeah, he does need something else. He does need something that goes down properly, right? Or really lives low properly. The cutter at 88 versus the 94 4-seamer kind of is a slider. It's really in that gray area of what is a cutter and what is a slider that drives Eno Saris crazy. That's what, the 4th counter, I want to say, for shouting Eno's name in this podcast. But yeah, he is a very interesting one. I would say that he's not quite the kind of guy I like going for in this, because as an SP5, if you're an SP5, then it needs to be something worthwhile in a big way if he is in that rotation and doing it, right? So, I mean, not to say that there is someone else to go for here. Like, I was running out so much, I had Andrew Painter in the 22nd round, okay? All right. But, and like, really, there's nothing. It's Clay Holmes, Casey Mize, Brandon Sproat, Kyle Harrison, and my boy Sawyer Gibson Long. But it does kind of showcase, it does shrivel up a little bit by the end. It does,
Yeah,
you do get fewer options.
I did notice at the end there, because I think last year there were a lot of kind of last 3 round options that I liked a lot more. And here it really, rounds 17 through 20 or so. That's when you need to get your guys in terms of, pitchers with question marks.
Yeah, it's not as clear yet, but let me tell you, spring training. Oh, we do have some fun things that happen there every single year. So strap in for that one. And what do you know, 23rd round, you're like, I have one Cardinal because I know that Sonny Gray is going to get traded, and Nick told me what he's doing. So why not Alec Burelson? I need another Cardinal here.
Who let me draft all the Cardinals? I want to know. No, I really think he's an underrated average guy. I think my hot take is Burleson, like every other Cardinal I drafted, won't be playing for the Cardinals come opening day. I think he could end up in somewhere like Seattle, or actually no, because they signed Naylor. But I think he could end up not on the Cardinals, and he's going to hit 280, 290. And I really like that again as a kind of fringe bench option. See how he does early on, and gives me an opportunity to chase something else later.
There you go. Well, Nate Schwartz, that is your mock draft on a scale of 1 to 23. How do you feel about this team?
About a 17 or 18.
Okay.
I really liked how I started the draft. I mean, I don't think Soto and Crochet will be a combination you'll see very much come January 1st through actual draft day, and add Ketel Marte onto that. And I think that's, as good as any 3 rounds can go. And I liked my mid-early round selections, but then I think I maybe got a little bit too ambitious later in the draft. But all in all, I know how I am as a manager, I make a lot of moves, and I can, parse through that pretty quickly. But I think I definitely left something to be desired, through and through at the end.
And is there something that you learned in this draft that you're going to take with you in March?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is to understand how pitching volume goes. I think this draft really went in pockets of stuff guys getting drafted together and innings guys getting drafted together. And I really want to make sure, I think it's very easy to identify, pitcher tiers or position tiers, but within that, especially with pitching, really know, where are the innings and ratio drop-offs, because that is just so important, across the entire season.
Definitely. Well, that's it. That's Nate Schwartz, everyone, with his mock drafts. Nate, can't thank you enough for joining us today and participating in this one. That's going to do for this episode. We will also have Kyle Bland's mock draft shortly after this one, but that is it for today. So on behalf of Nate Schwartz, my name is Nick Pollack, and we'll enjoy On the Corner again next week.